It's time for the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, a podcast so good it doesn't need a name. So without any further ado, here's your host, JD. Take it away, Johnny.
Hello, my friends, and welcome to episode 42 of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast, recorded on April 27th, 2014. I'm your host, JD, aka Galactic, and today's episode, we talk about Galactic Strongholds, because I just can't possibly say Galactic Strongholds without first saying Galactic Starfighter. Galactic Strongholds has been delayed. Is that good? Bad? Well, that's for you to decide, but I'll tell you what I think. And we'll be discussing the future story of SWTOR. I feel like we've discussed this before on the show, but I got a nice email, which will be the Fawn. Man, I'm having a rough intro today. That's right, the winner of this week's Astromech code has given me a suggestion to do with stories, so we'll be discovering that in the second segment, as well as something fresh off the wall of crazy, so let's force leap right in. Red 2, I've got a topic coming in hot, requesting clearance to engage.
Lock S foils in attack positions. You are cleared to discuss.
On Wednesday, senior producer Bruce McLean gave us a developer blog, and this one may have shocked some people. A little over a month since the announcement of Galactic Strongholds. Alright, if I say Galactic Starfighter, I'm going to stop correcting myself. I'm just going to move on as if I said the right thing. So, if I want to talk about Galactic Starfighter, I'll make it be known, but we will be talking about Galactic Strongholds for the foreseeable future. So, just to avoid any complications there, just replace Galactic Starfighter with Galactic Strongholds. Anyway, it's been a little over a month since they announced when we will be getting early access and when we will be seeing the release of Galactic Strongholds, and we get this! For the past year, we've made it our goal to share updates and information on what's happening in the studio and our upcoming plans for the game. We got the message that you appreciate transparency and want to know what we're working on. With that in mind, we wanted to share a change in the plans to our most recently announced digital expansion, Galactic Strongholds. We've been listening to what you, our players, were hoping to see from the Galactic Strongholds expansion. When playing early builds of Galactic Strongholds, it became clear that our June early access date was simply not enough. For this to truly feel like an expansion, it needs to include the full set of features, including those originally coming later this year. So what does this mean? We are moving the start date for subscriber early access from June 24th to August 19th, so we'll be seeing a little less than a month bump in the date there, in order to deliver the most features at the highest level of quality. The result will be a far more compelling experience, including additional features such as the ability to place your vehicles and your pets in your stronghold, and for guilds to conquer planets. To conquer a planet, guilds must complete weekly conquest events, earning points to place you at the top of the guild leaderboards. Conquering a planet gives the guild special perks and rewards. This means that subscribers will be the first to play the full slate of expansion features at the start of subscriber early access, a month before anyone else does. This additional time allows us to add conquest events. Use the power of your stronghold to dominate these events and earn rewards. Guild flagships will now offer expanded functionality for guilds, providing powerful buffs to guild members from orbit, transporting entire groups to your personal coordinates instantaneously, and competing in those conquest events to conquer entire planets. There's also going to be a new stronghold, the Tatooine Homestead. So those of you wishing to be moisture farmers, harkening back to your Star Wars Galaxy days, now's your chance. And finally, vehicles, mounts, pets, and companion characters can be placed as decorations in the stronghold. So I'm going to stop there. We'll continue on reading the dev blog later, but I just want to comment on what we've read so far. So they've decided to push the release of Galactic Strongholds back. And this may anger some people, and some people may be totally okay with this. I err on the side of thinking that this is a good thing. This means they'll have more time to polish up what they're going to give us, and they'll be giving us more features closer to what players have been asking for and players have been speculating on thus far. A lot of players had very lofty goals for what Galactic Strongholds means to them, and I think What Bioware is saying here is that they saw these lofty goals and wanted to try and meet them, instead of coming up short early and then maybe building up into what players wanted. I think this is kind of similar to how the space game worked, where the original space game was kind of just a placeholder until they can get something good. But the fact that it was a placeholder put a bad taste in everyone's mouth, and it kind of set space up to have a negative connotation for a long time, and was definitely detrimental to the game's success. One of the many features that was a detriment to the game's success at launch. But that placeholder just stood for way too long. That was a very poor decision on Bioware's part. I think they acknowledge that and don't want to see a repeat of something like that going forward, especially with a new expansion. They've done a great job with the previous expansion, improving on that space game. I think the space game is great. It's getting a little stale now, I think. I think it's lost a little bit of its luster. I think players who are still doing it really enjoy it a lot, but I do think it's lost a little bit of its luster to some players where they aren't doing it as much, which is shown by the decrease in queue pops that I've noticed. I don't know if that's anecdotal evidence, but I've definitely noticed it's harder to get a Galactic Starfighter match these days than it was closer to the release. Maybe that's just a general lower population. Maybe we're in a lull, kind of. We do have the nightmare modes, but we're in between seasons and ranked, and there hasn't been a ton of content for everyone. There hasn't been a new event or anything like that in a while, so we may just be in a population lull, which happens at MMOs, so that might be why. But I think they also need to take cues from the original Starfighter game, the original space game to Starfighter, in that they did leave it out there for so long. And if they do push it back like they have, if they are pushing it back, they have to make sure that what they give us is as polished as they say it will be, and all the features that they say will be there are going to be there. If you're going to push something back and say, we're doing this because of X, Y, and Z, if X, Y, and Z isn't there in the end, then there's a significant problem in how stuff is being told to us, how this new transparency is being used. It's really, if the feature is being delayed for something that isn't even going to be there, then what's the point of delaying it in the first place? If we're going to delay it and then we don't get conquest events and the guild flagship functionality isn't there, they can't go back at that point and then say, hey guys, we screwed up, we didn't really expect for this to take so long. Oh well. That's not going to work when you push it back. If you're going to push it back one big time. I think that's a problem with a lot of things. If you're gonna push something back, I think you get one shot to do it, and you have to do it right. And if you don't do it, then it starts to become a problem. I think everyone deserves that one mulligan, that one do-over to try again. I think sometimes there are features that you see, well, here they're trying to improve it based on player feedback, which is great. But if they can't take stock of, okay, this is what we have to do X, Y, and Z, it's going to take about this long, because we've been doing this game, we've been developing for this game for almost 3 years now. 2.5, oh, not almost, oh, let's say 2.5. We've been developing for this game for 2.5 years now while it's been live. So this is about how long it should take. If they can't do that right the first time, then there's some logistical problems within Bioware, which is a scary thought to say. Now, what do I think about these features that they have said? And one big clarification that I want to read from Eric Musco is that conquering a planet is done through the completion of conquest events, which are PvE missions. So there is no directly encouraged or directly rewarded world PvP from this. So if you're thinking, oh great, they're bringing back Ilum, you'll be able to capture planets just like Ilum, and there'll be world PvP breaking out everywhere. That's not necessarily how it's going to happen. What I think everyone has assumed at this point is that it will be similar to the other events, like the Rakghoul event or the Gree event, where you're doing PvE missions in a PvP area, so that on a PvP server you're fighting over resources. So you can use PvP to help finish your PvE missions, because you're killing other players who are eating up your nodes and killing your mobs. So you're killing those players off, and then you can have all the mobs and stuff to yourself as a giant guild group. I think that's great. If you've been listening to the show since the start, you know that I'm a huge proponent of world PvP, but I am a huge opponent of world PvP for world PvP's sake. I think that old Ilum was well, not old Ilum. Original Ilum I don't think was that bad. I think that Ilum 1.0 or 2. Whatever, Ilum when they changed it where you had to get X number of kills and stuff like that on other players in Ilum is stupid. Get players in the same area and they will organically do world PvP. Get players competing over their mobs and their nodes and things like that. And world PvP will happen organically, and that's the kind of world PvP that I think should be encouraged. When you have big, Guild War style World v World or ESO style, I don't even know what they're calling it, I forget what they're calling it, in that central area, PvP, where it's just free-for-all and stuff going crazy. It just turns into a stupid Zergfest with just a hive mind of people moving around and nothing really getting accomplished, and maybe you do something or what. It's stupid to me. That's not how good, fun world PvP happens. World PvP happens when you just happen to be in the same place as another guild, another group who are trying to do the same thing as you are, and the PvP happens because you're both trying to accomplish the same things. That's cool PvP to me. PvP for the sake of world PvP is stupid. I think that this could be done well, and I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing that the Conquest events aren't strictly PvP missions. They're PvE missions that you do with a group. One thing that does confuse me, or I have questions about, is what happens once this goes early access. Will only your subscribers in your guild be able to compete in these events? That's what I assume will happen. And only subscribers in your guild will be able to have access to your guild flagship and all the guild features like that, which is silly in my opinion. I think if you're going to do early access for the guild stuff, that your whole guild, or pretty much all the guilds, should have access to the guild stuff. And just the guild stuff, maybe you don't get your house or your farm on Tatooine, fine, that you can put that off and wall that off. If you're going to punish your guild because only the subscribers will get into your flagship and be able to do things, and only your guild can transport you to wherever you're doing, I don't know, whatever guild event you're doing. Maybe you're doing Outlaw's Den PvP or something like that. If only some people in your guild can do that, I think that hurts the whole guild. So just give the guild features to everyone. I don't see the big problem with that. I don't see a lot of players, oh, I'm not going to sign up for early access because I'm going to get the guild features. No, people are just going to sign up for early access because they want to do the Galactic Strongholds stuff on their own. They want to have a house on Nar Shaddaa, on Tatooine, on Coruscant, on Korriban, and they will sign up for that and not necessarily for the guild features, in my opinion. Let's read a couple more clarifications here, because I think some of them are important. Another big one from Eric Musco, 2.8 will no longer be the biggest update to date, as we will be shifting Galactic Strongholds out of it. 2.8 will still be great though. We will have more details about it, and the rest of our plans from Bruce's updated roadmap. This one was pretty obvious. The biggest update was obviously because of the Galactic Strongholds stuff. I do think that they need to give us an idea of what's going to be in it. I hope we don't have another dearth of content over the summer like we did in last year's Summer of SWTOR debacle. And just releasing one Nightmare mode on... It's half of a Nightmare mode basically, because that's just going to be Galactic... It's just going to be Dread Palace. So it's really half of this tier of Nightmare modes. And if that's all that's going to be in 2.8 and the end of Season 2, which I think will be in 2.8, Season 2 is starting next week for those of you who didn't know. So I'm going to guess that Season 2 is going to end in 2.8 because they've said they want to end on big major patches. It's not going to be enough for players just to get a Nightmare mode in there. They are going to have to do... There's probably going to be another set of flashpoints, I would guess, that we will see those in 2.8. They will continue to bridge the story until we get the full-fledged expansion at the end of the year. They definitely need to do something else here. I would say something else on top of you in the flashpoints. If they could even pop in another Warzone here, I think that would be great. I know they asked for Warzone ideas, and it's probably too soon to be thinking that one of those could be into the game this quickly. But something else, maybe a new arena map, or just something else, especially for the PvPers. Maybe this would be a time, we'll definitely be seeing events come back. 2.8, if it doesn't have other content, and they've shown this in the past, they will bring back old events to sate people who want content or something to do. So we'll definitely see the Grey event, and I would guess we'll see the Rackle event come back in this time. Continuing on in the clarifications, placing of decorations may work a bit differently than some of you might expect, and as such we would like to show you To your point, we have to manage expectations, and I would hate to have me explain it to you. That won't really do it justice. You need to see it. More information coming soon, TM. And this is something that I asked Eric on Twitter, is that could we see a live stream or something like this of just the Galactic Starfighter features? I think that would be a good thing, and he mentions managing expectations here. I think it would be good if BioWare could just put it out on the table. They've admitted that they need more time, and I think it would be great if they could just say, you know, go on Twitch and be like, hey, here's what we have, here's all our cards on the table, this is what we want to do with them, this is how we do stuff now, we're trying to get here, and I think that would temper expectations a little bit better than just giving this long dev post about how it's going to be tough, how we don't want to just explain it, we want to show it to you. If you want to show it to us, just show it to us. Unless you have something to hide, then why hide it? Just come out there, be upfront, and I think that would give you a longer leash in the long run. And if you do have to delay it again, or some of the features don't make it in, if you're more upfront and showing us the development of it, and show us something behind the curtain, and show us what's going on outside of our vision, and what we can't see, and explain, you know, the things that we don't understand that cause these delays and cause things like that, I think we would be more receptive to changes and more understanding of those changes. And I think those are two things that are really what you're trying to do when you're trying to be transparent. You want players to understand what's going on and why it's going on, and then those consumers will feel more invested in what you're doing and be more willing to be okay with how it ends up, whether it meets their expectations or not. And that's really all I have to say about the delay of Galactic Strongholds. I almost said Starfighter yet again, but I didn't. I stopped myself, so that's a miracle. Hallelujah. That's what I think about the delay. What do you guys think? As always, you can let me know. Email me, gaddick@gaddickgaming.com, or tweet me at GT to tell me what you think about the delay. Do you think it's a good idea? Do you like what they're saying here? And what you would like to see from them in the future with this new transparency initiative? How would you like them to show you or tell you? Do you think that they should be streaming like I think? Or do you think that it's okay that they don't show us really anything? They just do these long dev blogs. Tell me what you think. Email me, tweet me. Coming up, we're going to be talking about story. Spoilers abound, so if you want to go completely unspoiled, it's really all going to be speculation, but if you want to go completely unspoiled, then go ahead, skip to the end segment, the Wall of Crazy segment, because we're talking about story and where it could go. Stick around. This week's second segment will be based on an email from @_baffle on Twitter. He was the winner of this week's Astromech code. If you'd like to win an Astromech code, all you have to do is email me a suggestion for this second segment of the show to gaddick@gaddickgaming.com, and you'll be entered to win. If I pick your suggestion, I will send you an Astromech code. So, not that hard. Just give me something to talk about, and you could win. He suggests, my Wall of Crazy idea for the next step in the class story are weekly class story missions. These would be endgame solo or 2+ missions that take you to a particular planet to raid an opposing faction base, instance in new areas. Your objective is to eliminate an officer or gather data vital to the continuation of the story. Each mission is timed, so if you don't complete it in the time allowed, you'll have to wait until next week to try again. If you succeed, you'll also have to wait until next week to acquire the next assignment. Think Shroud quests on a timer. This would naturally gate content, provide story, and have consequences for performance. These story quests would build up to an endgame hard mode flashpoint or heroic 4. Now, some of the specifics I'm not 100% sold on, but I think your overarching idea is great, and something that I've talked about before. I think I talked about it on my YouTube channel, on my video I did of FTL. I just was playing FTL and decided to record it and put it up on YouTube. I talked about how I think there's a distinct lack of serialized gaming out there. And what does that mean? Well, think about if you watch an episode of Star Trek. I think that's the easiest comparison I can make. If you just watched your everyday run-of-the-mill Star Trek episode, you go in, there's a conflict, there's a story, half hour is done, and usually the crew ends up in the exact same spot as they went into. You know, you do have your finale, your big set piece episodes, character dies, character leaves, something big happens, something monumental happens. Usually, like I said, it's in the first episode of the season, last episode of the season, sometimes a couple episodes in the middle. But in your everyday run-of-the-mill, if you picked a random episode, there's a good chance that Spock and Kirk end up in the exact same spot in the end as they did in the beginning. And I think that's something that gaming doesn't embrace enough. I think it's a great place where DLC could live in certain games, and I think it's a great way and a great place for small content chunks and small story chunks in MMOs like Star Wars: The Old Republic. Just think if every month you got access to a new quest, and that quest took you to a planet, it had its own small self-contained story. You go, you save the good guys, you kill off the bad guys, end of story, you got your nice little vignette, and that's it. It's done, and it can't be completed again. It's over, you've experienced it, you've enjoyed it, and it's over. Then next month, that mission's gone, because that episode, you're done with it, no one can do it anymore, and you get a new episode this month. And this month's episode takes you to a different planet with a different problem, and new characters to meet and story to accomplish. And when that's done, you go on to something new. Now, this doesn't always have to be something grand and amazing. That's something also games these days I don't think grasp enough. You don't have to be the one all the time. You don't have to be the special snowflake. You don't have to be the be-all, end-all, the hero to save the galaxy, the one person, the one savior of the galaxy and of the universe. You don't necessarily have to be that in every single story. You can have small stories where you happen to be a smuggler that's near a stranded starship, and you happen to get a distress signal, and you get a nice little small self-contained story on that starship. And once you're done with it, the captain says, "Oh, thanks for the help, bye, gone, ship's gone," and that's it. You enjoy the story for what it is, not necessarily for being part of a larger story, and that's why you watch those episodes of Star Trek. You don't necessarily care that with every mission they're not saving the galaxy. Not every episode of Star Trek has to end with them saving the galaxy or saving everything. Sometimes they're just saving a small population. Sometimes they're just discovering a relic. Sometimes something small happens, and that's the point of that story. They're not saving the galaxy or the Federation every single time they have an episode. That's not the story of every episode. It doesn't have to be. So I don't understand why so many games feel like they have to tell this monumental story that's so big and expansive and all-encompassing. It doesn't have to be. Sometimes you can have these small little vignettes, and I think those would do well. As Baffle says, if every month you just got something new to do, and then it was gone. And I think something like that could be great because it could be small, and it could be done, you know, you could have one writer sit down and in a session just bang out this small story. If it sucks, you know, that's this month's story. Maybe it's not the best, but next month's story could be even better. Next month you could get a gem of a story, and you just keep trying things, and if you keep trying things quickly, just quick turnover of, okay, let's try this. Well, that didn't work. Let's try this now. Oh, that didn't work. Oh, let's try this. People love that. All right, let's try this one. People like that one too. Let's try something. Maybe you continue stories from 3 months ago. All of a sudden, you meet that captain that you saved, and now he's being attacked by spice traders, and you're going to try and save him again. Or he happens to be on another planet and helps you out find that relic. He helps you find whatever you're searching for on another planet. Things like that, I think, are the cool possibilities that you have when you work from the premise of this story doesn't have to be when you work from the premise of serialized storytelling in gaming. And I think that so many cool little stories could be told in the Star Wars universe. When people are talking now about, oh, this is canon, this isn't canon in the Star Wars universe, oh, they're going back, Lucas is changing, oh, what this is, and retconning this and this and this. To me, I don't sweat about that. I don't care about that because what I do care about is the small stories told in the universe. I don't care about the continuity as much as the stories being told. If the stories are told well, the continuity can hurt a little bit. It's okay. I haven't read every book in the extended universe. I haven't seen all the little TV shows. I haven't seen the cartoon. I forget what it was called. And I don't necessarily care. The stories that I've read have been great. And if those don't happen to be canon, that's okay. The stories are still what they are. They speak for themselves and they stand alone. And if we could have a quest system like that, where we do have standalone little missions every month, I think every month is a good time. If every year we get 12 little story missions that have nothing to do with the grand scheme of the story, I think that would make those missions feel even more special than a planet like Makeb, where we all know that everyone's going to Makeb, doing the same thing. Everyone is killing... I even forget the Hutt's name at the end. You kill him, and you're done with it. I think also this system would add a specialness to doing those little events. If you're on in January, and your friend, he wasn't subbed in January, you did that quest line, you've done something that he hasn't necessarily done. And it might be a small thing, and it might necessarily have anything to do with the grand story, and that makes it okay that the other guy hasn't seen that story or can't see that story. You get rid of that story because it's not part of the whole galaxy as a whole. If he doesn't do that story, he doesn't lose out on anything when the expansion does come out and the big overarching story is wrapped up. But these little bursts of story make your personal story feel special, and I think that's the goal of any MMO that has some basis on story, and SWTOR in particular, is if you can make someone's personal story feel special to them in some way, then I think that's something that should be cultivated and strived for. So thank you, Bathel, for your great suggestion. I really hope we see serialized content more in gaming. Like I said, I initially talked about this with FTL because I think that those systems, not necessarily the game, but those systems would lend themselves well to a serialized gaming style where you take you and your crew. It would basically be playing through Star Trek in an episodic form. But the point, it's not episodic in the fact that, you know, episode 1, it's not like The Walking Dead or I forget the fairy tale one, but where episode 1 leads to episode 2, it's where each episode is its own standalone thing. And I would really enjoy playing something like that, and I think it would be really cool. So little stories, I think those would be cool, but now it's time for the Wall of Crazy. What? That's impossible even for a computer!
It's not impossible. I used to bullseye womp rats in my T16 back home. They're not much bigger than 2 meters.
And since we're talking about story, this week's Wall of Crazy topic, I ask you on Twitter, what do you think the next step in the SWTOR storyline will be? You got a number of great suggestions, let's talk about a couple of them. Daniel Fitzgerald at JediCal says, after studying both sides' tactics on Ilum, the geir are the instigators of the renewed conflict between the Imperials and the Republic. They are the new Dreadmasters. And that's something that I think was initially thought of when people saw the Grey event. People were like, these guys, they're kind of coming out of nowhere. And they're studying us pretty intently. Why would they be doing that? That's a little sketchy, right? I think people are a little bit more comfortable now with the Grey since they helped us in the Terra from Beyond conflict, but really, we just helped them in the Terra from Beyond conflict, so maybe they really are evil. I don't know. That seems like a definite possibility. Jason Connell at J Connell says, the new big bad, Revan and his followers. That's what I think. I think that Revan will be the next step in the storyline. He escapes with the 1 HP, or the 1% HP in the Foundry, and I think he'll definitely be back at some point, so now is as good a time as ever. Road at the Road Guy from Torocast, the host of Torocast, in fact, says, the Selkath rise up with Colto miniguns and overheal the Empire Republic into submission. Don't doubt me. Alright, I won't doubt you, but I'll just let that one stand on its own right there. And then finally, Ben _B55 says, Malgus returns crazy with robot spider legs. Oh wait. Obviously a reference to Karaga and his wonderful spider legs. But I do think that Malgus will return. I have high hopes that Malgus will return at some point. Malgus was the best enemy in the game at any point. He's a great character. He's explained very well, and the fact that all he got was a push down the mine shaft, or the push down the exhaust shaft, or whatever it was, makes me a little sad because I feel like he deserved better, and hopefully he gets better when he comes back from the dead somehow. And that'll about do it for this week's show. Like I said, if you'd like to win a TonFon code, all you have to do is email me, gadicteague@gadicgaming.com, with a suggestion to talk about in the second segment of the show. As always, if you'd like to contact me, you can send your questions, comments, concerns also to gadicteague@gadicgaming.com, or you can tweet them to @gteague on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes to get your weekly podcast update. I'm going to write myself a note right now, getting the podcast on Stitcher. I have to figure out what I have to do with that. But yes, I've heard that you want it on Stitcher. I'll get it on there. If you're new to the game or thinking of resubscribing, I've provided my refer a friend link in the show notes. So if you'd like a little added incentive to come back, feel free to use it. You can also check out my website, gadicgaming.com, where I post the podcast, any of my SWTOR videos, any of my other videos. You can actually go look at my FTL video on my website, gadicgaming.com, and any other gaming musings that I have when I feel like writing. I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Unnamed SWTOR Podcast. This is JD, signing off.